Hello, by the end of this video you will have learned about the future perfect continuous tense. To do that, we're going to follow the usual steps. First, we will look at what is the future perfect continuous tense. Second, we will learn how you use the future perfect continuous tense. And third, we will look at some real-world examples of when you can use the future perfect continuous tense. Please watch the whole video so that you don't miss out on any vital information about how to use this more complicated tense in the English language. Within the video, I will also give details about where you can test your knowledge from this particular video to make sure that you fully understand what this tense is, how to use it, how it works, and when you can use it. I think this will be a useful tool for you, especially if you have any English tests coming up. Perhaps you have some course book exercises, or perhaps you need to use the future continuous tense as part of an assignment, a written essay, or something along those lines. So this particular resource that I'm providing free of charge will be of great use to you, I'm sure. With plenty of practice and following the ideas in this video, you will become a master using the future perfect continuous tense. So let's go ahead and have a look at it. What is future perfect continuous tense? Well, the future perfect continuous tense describes actions that are happening in the future and they will continue at a point in time in the future. So again, because of the continuous aspect of this tense, we're talking about the duration of time. Let's take a look at a timeline now, see how that looks in the real world, and see how we can then move on and explain a little bit more about the future perfect continuous tense. It's important to note that with the future perfect continuous, the event could have started in the past. So it continues up until the moment of speaking, indicated by the X, which is now. The event will be continuing up to a certain point in the future. Sometimes we know when that will definitely be, and other times we might not know when that particular event will be, but it's used to talk about this entire period. Example: in October 2021, I will have been living in Indonesia for 10 years. Notice that I use the end point, so in October as the start of the sentence being the time indicator, and then will have been living, talking about my continuous experience living in Indonesia. That means I have lived in Indonesia for 10 years, so since 2010 up until the present moment and beyond. And I'm also talking about that future time up until October 2021. Now, depending on when you see this video, it might be a little bit out of date, but for your records, the recording date of this video is the 17th of April 2021. Okay, now that we've seen how the future perfect continuous works, talking about the duration of an event that begins in the past, it continues through now, and will have some marker or point in the future to which it's referring. It's time for us to move on and look at the formula of the future perfect continuous. Now, there are some additional notes that you need to be aware of about when you can use it and when you can't use it. So let's have a look first at how we make the future perfect continuous. What is the formula? We'll have a look at some questions as well. Then we'll talk a little bit about why you can't use the future perfect continuous in certain situations. So, future perfect continuous is made by using the subject plus will plus have plus been plus verb ing. Subject plus will plus have plus been plus verb ing. Example: I will have been editing this video for 2 hours at 5 p.m. Notice that 5 p.m. is the end time. The duration is the 2 hours, which I've just said there. So, I will have been editing this video for 2 hours at 5 p.m. Listen and repeat now. I will have been editing this video for 2 hours at 5 p.m. So now we know what it is, now we know how it's made, we need to look at some examples. But first of all, it's worth mentioning that this particular tense is very, very rarely used to make a question. It's very long-winded, and there are much easier ways to make a question, especially when you want a certain piece of information. So I would strongly recommend avoiding using this tense to make questions, and therefore I have omitted it from this particular video. However, if there is some demand to have a look at making questions in present perfect continuous, by all means drop me a comment down there or a like and let me know, and I'll certainly work on that for you. It's worth also mentioning that this particular tense is not used with stative verbs, so those are verbs of being. Rather, it is used more with action verbs. Not sure what I mean? Well, let's have a look at some examples and I'll show you why you can't use this particular tense with stative verbs. Stative verbs, sometimes known as non-action verbs, like to be or to seem, to know, are not suited for the future perfect continuous tense. Instead, these verbs take the future perfect tense, which is formed with will plus have plus the past participle. Notice there is no continuous element in those situations. So, non-action verbs do not use the future perfect continuous tense. Example. Here's an incorrect example. On Thursday, I will have been knowing you for a week. Doesn't make sense. Perhaps the better way to phrase that would be, on Thursday, I will have known you for a week. Listen to example number 2. Here's the incorrect example. I will have been reading 45 books by Christmas. Versus, I will have read 45 books by Christmas. Now that you can see the contrast in the tenses there, it's not always vital to use the future perfect continuous. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, it is one of the rarer used tenses in the English language, and not often will you hear it unless you're in a fluid, rapid conversation. Test your skills for free on my website. I also mentioned earlier that I'll tell you where you can find a little test so you can test your knowledge about this particular tense. All you need to do is just visit my website, mrgary.com, and look for the Future Perfect Continuous blog. In there's a little test, and that will help you determine your skill level when you're dealing with this particular tense. Are you comfortable using it? Do you have any issues? Do you need more practice? If the answer is yes, then let's have a little look together at these 5 examples that I've prepared for you, and let's just examine the structure of these examples. Example number 1. I will have been waiting here for 3 hours by 6 o'clock. Remember the earlier example I gave you? 6 o'clock is the end time. 3 hours is the duration. By 2022, I will have been living in London for 16 years. Example number 3. When I finish this course, I will have been learning English for 20 years. Next year, I will have been working here for 4 years. Here's a sneaky example, number 5. When I come home at 6 p.m, will you have been practicing long? Again, as I mentioned, it's not really worth making questions in future perfect continuous because it's very wordy, very complicated, and it's very rarely used. Right, now you've had 5 examples of the future perfect continuous. Remember, you can go to my website at mrgary.com and try your skills there in my little future perfect continuous test. Remember to go there after the lesson. I'll put a link in the description. Please also remember you can subscribe to my channel by just clicking the subscribe button that's just down there. Remember to leave me a like. And also, if you have any further issues or requests, please do leave a comment in the comment box below, and I'll be glad to assist or advise or speak to you and reply to your comments. That just about wraps up this video. You might want to check out some of the other videos that I've made on my channel. Click here for the playlist or click here for the YouTube recommended one. That wraps it up. Take care of yourselves and I'll see you next time.